Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. Coming up on today's show, I think we got a peek into the future for the Hawks on Saturday against the Raptors.
And the Falcons get a huge win. And you know what? Jarvis and I are going to give credit where credit is due.
And last but not least, and for the culture, Mykal Walker made a very interesting decision, and it had nothing to do with football. Don't go anywhere. It's ATL Day Ones on a Monday. Let's go.
This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
Thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. And remember, we're free and available wherever you download your podcast and wherever you download your podcast. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate that in advance. Today's episode of ATL Day Ones is brought to you by Bet Online. The Atlanta Hawks on Saturday, 124 to 122. The alley-oop pass from Trae Young to AJ Griffin at the end of the game was kind of like just peak Hawks type basketball on Saturday night. And I think the main thing that stood out to me, I was going back through and looking at some of the highlights, just kind of, do a little quick refresher. I saw the look on AJ Griffin's dad's face on the bench, and I think it's just said all what we need to see or say about that particular game, that particular play, and how the rookie finished it off.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And not just how he finished it off to actually put the ball in the basket, but more importantly, the presence of mind to know, hey, we only have 3.8 seconds to make something happen. We don't want to go to double overtime, if at all possible, because we got to get up out of here and get to Cleveland on Monday. So 3 hands touched the ball in 3.8 seconds. And everybody in that building, I don't care what they say, they thought when the second set of hands touched that ball, Trae Young, that he was going to take that shot. But like you said, this is a new look, new feel, new mindset Hawks. A year ago, yes, that shot probably would have been taken by Trae Young without him even giving it a thought. This time, he puts it in the hands of a rookie whom he trusts to make it happen. And more importantly, Nate McMillan, not just the team having a different mindset, but Nate McMillan to have had AJ Griffin in that game for 30 minutes. And he got progressively better as the game went on. And then he was in for the entirety of overtime. And he scored 8 points in overtime. Yeah, we're starting to see whether it's an up and a down here and there where, they'll kind of fall off, or a team like the Celtics get the best of them. But so much credit to the Hawks for being blown out by the Raptors just a week ago and being so resilient to bounce back and get that win Saturday.
Absolutely. I thought, I circled this one on the calendar to you. I was just like, this was more important than the Boston Celtics, right? Because we know what the Celtics are. They are the best team in the East, and they might be the best team in the NBA right at this moment early on in the season. So I think that the Raptors have been the Hawks' nemesis, and for them, regardless of who was playing and who wasn't, it doesn't matter. The Hawks were able to exercise those demons and get that dub. And now, but I think that one thing that I want to touch on is that John Collins found out in this game, and I think that going into overtime, that starting lineup was Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, AJ Griffin, DeAndre Hunter, and Clint Capella. I don't know about you, but I was looking at that lineup and I was just like, you know what? That seems like a 2022 NBA potentially be able to switch type positionless basketball lineup. And coming from Nate McMillan, I think that is all the progress we need to see.
Oh, yeah. I was like, Coach Nate. In fact, we had a joke, and I don't want to tell too much of it because Jarvis and I are going to circle back to it Wednesday. But literally, I did Sports Extra last night, and we had a question, and the answer, and this is all positive, the answer from all three of us was Coach Nate, Coach Nate, Coach Nate. And it was a really positive conversation. Like I said, I'm teasing you guys for Wednesday, so you better come back to hear the rest of it from Jarvis and me. But yeah, you got to give Nate McMillan the credit for continuing to evolve his coaching. We always talk about players evolving their game. Let's talk about a coach who's evolving his mindset to get it to where it needs to be. I mentioned, and I know this is something that we have to talk about because it's the John Collins retread
Of course.
of a potential trade. I mean, the
Right.
talk has been there for 2.5 years, and I've always said, and it won't go away until the ink is signed on a contract.
Right.
But that said, you got out of AJ Griffin exactly what it was that you needed. And even DeAndre Hunter in that game progressively kept getting more aggressive at the basket. And I really appreciate that. But you called something out that I called out in a slightly different way, which was to say, if you're going to match up with a team like the Raptors and finally get the best of them and at least contend with a team like the Celtics, your bigs, even with your positionless basketball, but your bigs are going to have to be able to do some things on the perimeter and in the mid-range and not just expect to eat under the basket.
Yeah, and we even kind of got a little peek into this last year, right? Because we saw DeAndre Hunter run at the 4,
Yep.
so to speak. Like, and I put that in air quotes because
Mhm.
like, we are talking about positionless basketball. Like,
Yes.
if you are able to do that and have a bunch of wings out there that can guard 1 through 5, and Clint Capella, who he can at least switch to his best of his capabilities, I think that is a lineup that is something that we probably need to get used to, because if they make that trade, because we got a report over the weekend that Mark Stein was saying that the Jazz have some interest in John Collins. So we shall definitely see. But I think that overall, T, like what's your biggest takeaway from this overtime win?
Yeah, and just same. I mean, the word on the street is indeed that it's going to be a three-way trade potentially. And yeah, the Jazz is one of the potential teams that was called out for a partnership. And I will tell you this much: when I look at the numbers from Saturday, what stands out to your point is the fact that the three-point numbers that were there in droves for the Raptors a week ago just weren't there. So you make a great point about the fact that if you can take away the wing shooting, the perimeter shooting, the deep ball for a team, now you've got a chance. You're putting yourself in position. And then if you can go to the other end of the court and do some catch and shoots from deep, now we're talking about the Hawks potentially putting themselves in a position of where we know they want to be, because they're kind of in that second tier that's fighting for that number 4 spot. And believe me, the fight started on opening night, because the East race, once you get out of the elite space of, like you said, the Celtics, if you will, then it becomes,
It's
and
tight.
the Heat, of course, it becomes tight. Boom. That's the word.
Absolutely. Speaking of, teams that are trying to vie for a spot and solidify themselves, I think Georgia Bulldogs qualify. T. They got the win. They got the dub against Georgia, against Kentucky, 16-6 over the weekend. But I think the one thing, as I was watching this game, it kind of stood out to me. I want to kind of get your thoughts as well. But it just seems to me that the Georgia Bulldogs are so good that they never panic, even though they had every right to panic. Throwing the ball and trying to come back, and with Stetson Bennett, because we saw this offense and how it has evolved this year. And Stetson Bennett has been pretty solid throwing the football, but he has the proclivity to turn it over from time to time. We all know that. We get that. We understand that part of it. But I think that when things get tight, Kirby Smart is going to go back to what he knows: run the dang on football. And they did it to the tune of Kenny McIntyre's T, and he was able to get established, and he was just absolutely toting that rock. And they said, you know what, we don't matter, we don't care that y'all playing pretty good defense against us. We're going to run this rock, and we're going to run it until the clock is at 0 and we have more points than you.
Yeah, and we are going to wear you down. And that's what they did. Kirby Smart always seems like he's posturing, right, when he gives credit to a subpar team. This time, he actually was like kind of on par with what he was saying, because everything that he said that Kentucky brought to the table actually came to fruition, right? So when you see that, a couple things that kind of stood out to me, Jarvis. Number one, I agree with you on the run game. My only thing was, hey, why not let Kenny McIntosh punch it in when you ended up turning it over on downs? That might have been a good look for him to be able to do that for you. But other than that, I love the play calling against what Kirby knew he was up against in the Wildcats. Secondly, I'm going to use this term, which is going to sound crazy to the average person, but hear me out. This defense is underrated. This defense is underrated. This defense is underrated. I get that last year's defense, it was a generational defense. You're not going to have 5 players go in the first round very often That's just the reality of it.
Yeah,
One team's
exactly.
not going to have that. But that isn't always the bar that's set. This is still a team with this defense. A lot of these guys were responsible for the 8-0 last year and are responsible for the 8-0 this year. And this team could have a senior class that walks away as the winningest senior class ever for a Georgia football team. You know how that happens? With a defense that is doing the things that they've done. And it's a different player, it seems like, every single week. And I love that about them. Other thing is this. I like to call the LSU Tigers, my home team, a little scrappy. Right. So
Right.
Little Scrappy is continuing to trend up, trend up, trend up. Sometimes it's good to have a game like this where you show resilience and you show that you can win it any kind of way as you get set, and taking nothing away from Georgia Tech, by the way. But as you really get set with this final tune-up before that SEC championship game, I think this is actually going to be in Georgia's favor.
Yeah, absolutely. I will never doubt Georgia, because we talk, people try to earmark the games that Georgia need to, quote unquote, watch out for to start the season. Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky, all that's like, Georgia is really good. They don't have the names that are going into the NFL draft as much, like you said, like you mentioned, as they did last year.
Sure.
But there's some guys, there's NFL talent on this
Yes.
in this lineup. Yeah. Like, please believe there are going to be some guys called, their names are going to be called, not as many as they did last year, but it's going to be some names called in the NFL draft in the spring for sure. And Jalen Carter is going to be the first one. I can go ahead and put some money down on that one.
Indeed.
That dude is absolutely amazing. So, well, yeah, I think that is that's the thing that we kind of have to make sure we understand, right? Like, if you don't have all those NFL prospects, like, it still can be a really good college defense, and that's what they have. They are great. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. They are great.
Agreed.
And I think that that's some of the things that we have to understand as Kirby Smart go through the season. Like you said, they have the final. I don't even know if I can call it a tune-up game against Georgia Tech. I joked. I was jokingly tweeting about, yeah, Georgia Tech is only one game win away from being bowl eligible. Yeah, they have to beat Georgia. Yeah, so good luck on that. Sorry, Brent.
But hey,
but that is guaranteed. If you want to, let me say this to you. If you can want to guarantee him getting that job, beat Georgia. I know that's a lot to say. That's a mouthful, but if he beats Georgia, Key got that dog. I'm walking the contract down to Key's office and be like, hey, man, here you go, bro.
Yeah. And boy, what a recruiting season it will be for Frank Key if he pulls that off. My God.
Absolutely. Speaking of pulling stuff off, you trying to win some money? You trying to, get some extra bread so you can spend a little bit extra on your significant other for Christmas? How about you go to bet on, like, right there you go. And if any admirers of Tenitra Batiste, which there are a lot, there are a lot of admirers on Batiste. If you want to send her something special, send an email, atldayones@gmail.com. She takes all gift cards and everything. If you guys want to show us some love, atldayones@gmail.com. Really appreciate it in advance. But if you're trying to get some money, BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in all your betting needs. Find out your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. My goodness, you can find reviews and news of every league: Major League Baseball, college football, NFL, NBA season is going like it's going. And if you're not into the major sports, how about combat sports, esports, and even golf? They got everything you need. You guys listen to us each and every day, Monday through Friday, for all your ATL sports needs. Check out BetOnline for all your gambling needs, because they have podcasts there waiting just for you. So what I want you to do is head to BetOnline today, or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today, because BetOnline is where the game starts.
Now, where does the real game start for the Falcons? I believe, Jarvis, it started at the Benz yesterday, because I believe we all knew that for the sake of the Falcons' playoff hopes, yesterday really was a must win. It really was a do or die. So it was a badly needed win for the Falcons. They took care of business with a 27-24 win over the Bears. And, I think about this. It felt like it was badly needed to keep their playoff hopes alive. But, Jarvis, I also feel like there's some other reasons why that was a badly needed win. And it was I'm going to go a couple different directions, right? First and foremost, I want to say on the offensive side of the ball, right? I think that they all, whether it's the O-line, the run game, passing game. Everybody wanted to bounce back. And I'm going to give you something that's a little bit of different offense. And we talk about this all the time with special teams coordinator Marquise Williams, how the special teams can be offense or defense, depending on what they do, flipping the field and the like. Well, guess who flipped the heck out of a field yesterday and gave the Falcons the real offense that really got them the win? Cordarrelle Patterson, historic 9th career kickoff return for a touchdown. How much credit does CP deserve for the Falcons' success? Particularly, like I said, it was special teams, but it was still offense.
If you give me an answer for percentage point, I would have to go 55%. Because here's why. Because they badly needed a score going into halftime. And for him to be able to, and the offense was struggling outside of that first drive.
Yep.
Crickets. You know what I'm saying? It was a little weak sauce. So I think that, you know, for him to be able to do what he did, and then this was after the fumble as well. So
yeah,
he talked about how he was just thinking about that and how he was so upset about it. He was just like, he don't care if doggone Santos had kicked that bad boy to the back of the end zone. He was going to take that mug out. And Coach Williams, like you mentioned, special teams coordinator, he gave him the leeway. He's like, all right, you can do your thing. So absolutely, that was the huge momentum swing for him to be able to get that return and take it to the crib. And I almost kind of got a little scared a little bit. I was just like, because once he got past Santos, somebody was coming in, closing in pretty fast. And I was just like, then when he clipped his foot, I was like, oh no, don't let him fall right before the goal line. But he fell right into the end zone. And it was so funny. When Cordarrelle Patterson was like, he's like, yeah, man, I was trying to cry to celebrate, but my teammates wouldn't let me. I'm like, dog it, man. Let the man be vulnerable. T. What's wrong with these folks, man? 2022.
Yeah, let him enjoy. Let him bask in all of it. And the other thing is this, only 53 yards rushing. But the reason I mention that is because he's so bruising and he rushes with such ferocity. It's like those are the little things as well that keep wearing a defense out, and you see them start to really kind of slow down and get sluggish in that fourth quarter. So that's why I would agree with you, 55, maybe even 60%, because run after run after bruising run is what he did. And that's what CP brings back to a running back core. Did the committee do well in his time out when he was injured? Sure, they did.
Right.
But you see when he comes back, how much of a difference maker he is. Now, switching gears, Jarvis, because you got to give these bend, don't break guys some credit as well. Justin Fields, they held him under 90 yards. This is the same guy who rushed for 143 yards just last week. Falcons were able to contain him, but Jarvis, how'd they do it? Who and how did they do it?
They put pressure on the quarterback. They sacked him 4 times. They had 9 tackles for loss. Like, I'm sit there on Sundays and literally beg these guys to get off the blocks, because that's what in today's outside zone schemes and, you know, and guys and kind of moving along and like and being so synonymous with their steps and everything, like what blows all that up, getting upfield, getting in the backfield and letting the doggone running back see your eyes. Because running back can see your eyes when he gets that ball. I promise you, he's going to hesitate. Wherever he's going, he ain't going to get there because he is worried about where you are and what you're trying to do to him. And I think that you saw that consistently. And this was one of the things that I was kind of going, you know, I go through all in my mind with all type of different scenarios as the game goes along, right? Because it seems like when the Falcons defense, when they get themselves in trouble, is when they have those first and long or second and longs, and they allow 12 yards if it's second and 13, and I'm just like, and then you're in third and short situations. It's just a horrible situation for them because they haven't been that good on third down. That's one of the reasons why, because you're giving up chunk plays, you know, or you're giving up, you know, significant yardage on those early downs, and that's how they got themselves in trouble. But when it was second and long, it ended up being third and long, and then that's when you start talking about, hey, D-line, run some games. You can get into those things because those guys, the quarterback has to hold the ball just a little bit longer in order to try to get that first down. So you saw that, and they were running stunts, and then you got Lorenzo Carter and Grady Jarrett out here playing around and slamming Justin Fields' head against the back of the doggone turf. I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, bless his little heart. That's how I felt about Justin Fields after the game. Bless your little heart. But yeah, that was the part of, you knew that was part of the game plan to hit him, not viciously, but you know, hit him. Like let them know that you're there. That's what you do to running quarterbacks, and let
Mm-hmm.
them know, like, and make those guys be able to hesitate in order before they think about taking off running, or the offensive coordinator, you know, hey, he might not call it a design run because he's out there taking some licks. But, you know, Luke Getsy was just like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and keep calling these design runs.
Yeah. And also give a lot of credit to the Falcons secondary because, like you said, when Justin Fields' O-line actually gave him an opportunity to throw, the Falcons secondary was like, not on my watch, because he is actually a better deep thrower than he is with the short game or
yes,
screen.
he was. He showed
so
that.
like, now what? And like you said, because maybe we'll call it a little bit of youth, if you will. We'll call it maybe not a lot of experience. He didn't recognize, at least in a timely manner and enough times, that, hey, they're taking away my long passing game. Let me go ahead and pull this ball down and just take run off, and let's just see what happens in a non-designed run play. So I wanted to just give the secondary credit for that. But this goes back to something.
It was back though, right, T?
Huh?
That dude was back.
And I was about to say,
that dude was back. Not a coincidence.
Right, and that's exactly where I was going with that. This goes back to what we said. When AJ Terrell is on the field, it makes a difference.
Hit different.
And it doesn't always show up in a stat line in terms of an interception, if you will. But like I said, that deep ball threat kept taking it away, and just literally rendered it useless. And the other piece we talked about on Friday as well was we just wanted Grady Jarrett to get some help. We just wanted Low Carter to show that he was really interested in providing some of that help. And even Taquan Graham, sorry that he went down for injury,
that's tough.
but he was at least showing some signs before he went down for injury. And that's all we really wanted. We just really wanted the D-line to show and prove that they were going to be the ones to keep that run game in check and make sure that they dictated the flow of the game. So, yeah, I really liked what we saw on defense from the Falcons as well. Now, this is my final question, and I think I might still be in the majority, but I'm just going to go out on a limb and ask you the question.
All right.
So, Jarvis, we get into the last 2 minutes, and Younghoe Koo kicks the go-ahead field goal, but the Bears get that ball back, and there's enough time for them to make something happen, whether it was win it outright or send it to overtime. Tell the truth. Has this team finally built up enough equity with you so that you were not nervous? You felt confident they were going to win?
Let me say this. I felt confident that they'll be able to get the win. I'll go ahead and say it. I felt confident. But here's 2 reasons why, right? Because just the way the defense is playing, like you're talking about sacking the quarterback and defensive linemen being active and them being in situations where they can't do those design runs where potentially Justin Fields can just take off for 65 yards and go to the house and take it to the house. And he's in a situation where he has to pass the football. I like those odds because, you know, like I mentioned, like those guys were really made it a good point. And Arnold Ebiketie was able to get home, and got to give a shout out to the rook as well for continue to get to the quarterback and continue to work his moves and get there. So I was, that's one reason way the defense was playing. But the second one is that this team has been playing really well at home. Yeah. Arthur Smith came into the season talking about how, hey, we want to be able to protect this house. We want to give you a reason to come to this stadium and be the loudest stadium and have that real home field advantage. So I think that, you know, given those 2 reasons, I was pretty confident that the Falcons want to be able to pull it out because they've been in these situations before. You know, Jalen Hawkins talking about getting one of those game-ending turnovers like that Richard Grant had and D. Offer had, you know, early on in the season. So he said, I wanted to get mine. So this stuff is contagious. When you talk about playing like that and getting sacks and getting interceptions, these guys start making plays. They want to do it. They want to continue. They motivates their teammates to go out there and go do the same thing. So, yeah, those 2 reasons, I was pretty confident that the Falcons were going to pull this bad boy out.
Indeed. And I agree. I was one of the people that obviously maybe I wasn't so much in the minority because I never doubted that they were going to win that game. Just like I don't doubt that after you stop here as your first stop, ATL Day Ones, and your second stop will be Locked On Sports Today. Why? Because they bring you the biggest stories of the day. They give you all the reaction in the world that you need. If you wanted to see the reaction that I had last night when I was ticked off, because I like the Chiefs, I will tell you. I was ticked off that it looked like the Chargers were going to win a game. I went to the restroom, came back, and guess what? The Chiefs won it. Get the reaction of our guys on Locked On Sports today. Check that out and listen where you get us, your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you download your podcast, you can get those guys as well. So don't forget, after ATL Day Ones, it's Locked On Sports today for you.
Absolutely. Locked On Sports, Atlanta family. Listen up. You know, when I change my voice, that means I'm about to say something really serious. We're at 4,900, almost 4,950, 4,950 subscribers. We're only about 50 subscribers away from 5,000. You guys have been supporting us since day one, ever since April 1st. You guys have been rocking with us. We really appreciate you. And for those of you who have not hit that subscribe button, what the hell are you waiting on? Please go ahead and hit that bad boy, and then be on the lookout for whatever silliness I'm going to come up with to celebrate 5,000 subscribers. Really appreciate that in advance. Now, T, this is for the culture. It is the intersection between sports, entertainment, and the culture. And sometimes we want to talk about this. How we get down on this show. Today is no different. Now, I was at the game, covering the game on Sunday, T, and you know how during the timeouts they have all the little celebrations. They had Tip come in and he had performed with some dude named Blanco, Pollo, Chicken, Blanco, some dude. And I don't know. I guess it's some black dude with a cowboy hat. That's who he was. But you know, I saw Tip, I heard him scream Bankhead, and I was like, all right, cool, I'm good now. Let's go, let's ride. But during one of the other timeouts, they had like a music bracket. Mm-hmm. And they were asking the young players about the bracket. Like, who would you pick over this particular artist? And who would you pick over that particular artist? And, you know, Mykal Walker was up there. And he had, I think it was Lil Baby and Gucci Mane. He went with Lil Baby. No, I'm sorry, Lil Baby. He went with Lil Baby. Yeah. The one from Atlanta. Yeah. Cool. I get that. I respect that. You know, I'm a Gucci fan, but, you know, hey, I probably would have went with Gucci, but hey, Lil Baby, I get it. Understand. Then the next bracket popped up. Migos, rest in peace, Takeoff, against Outkast. Guess who he picked, T?
Migos, of course.
The man picked Migos. I'm sitting up there like, so hold on. So you know, okay, you know, I'm gonna go ahead and let you respond. Go ahead, T. I know it look like you about to explain something to me, but go ahead and break it down for you, please.
Clearly, you don't understand that generation because that was a no-brainer. Like they do this at Hawks games all the time, and I always watch the generational differences in the shock, the unbelievable. Oh my God, I can't believe
unmitigated gall of you.
You asked a 22-year-old who is not from the A. He goes all day. Right,
but the thing about it, though, T, like, I get it because I had conversations with my nephews. There's three of them. They range from like 18 to like 25. And they said something that was like very profound. One day when I was having this conversation, we talking about music and everything. They was like, Uncle Jarvis. He was like, I thought that was pretty cool. I was like, oh, y'all calling me Uncle. I appreciate it. You know, they my nephew's in law. I guess that's a real thing, whatever. But they were like, Uncle Jarvis, think about it. They was like, J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar are like your Pac and Biggie. And I was just like,
yes. You know, well said, nephews.
Yeah, like I couldn't argue against. I had no argument against that, and I was like, okay, I understand it, I get it. But you know, it's just that Outkast, they were so great. And I think about it, Jarvis. The Migos, they had just as many hits as Outkast, and they probably don't even know who Andre 3000 is. Like, you know, if you name him by himself, you know what I'm saying?
They literally, the only thing they don't have is a diamond album. That is it. I mean, literally.
That was my one thing. I had to stand on the top of the mountain. I was like, they ain't went diamond. Like, what's the equivalent of diamond? Like,
diamond in the hip hop world. So, but no, you know, it's interesting because that generation, and of course, if you're not from Atlanta, can't be shocked because I literally fangirled myself to death Friday when I met Goody Mob, and I asked one of the players in an interview, We were talking about soul food, and I said, "Do you know Goody
Mhm.
Mob?" He said, "Goody who?" I said, "Okay, so moving right along." On that note, guys, we hope that the Hawks get a dub up in Cleveland tonight, so we can talk about how good that's going to be for us. And you can check out Goody Mob, by the way, really soon at a Hawks game. And of course,
Yes.
we're going to break down the Falcons game even more and talk about some things that we need to see as they get prepared for the weekend game against the Commanders, and anything and everything that comes out of this sports landscape. We got it just for you guys on ATL Day Ones tomorrow.
Y'all come back now, you hear?